So, good evening, folks. I haven't started sharing my screen yet, but I'm very glad that all of you have been able to log in for this evening's presentation. We have 10 fantastic, actually we have 11 because I was quite cheeky. I couldn't decide whether to invite Brendan Tumilty or Clodagh Tumilty. So I sent them a joint invite to do 5 each.
What you inviting him for, Ross?
So we have 10. The order of running is myself, Les Forrester, Bjarne Hyldgaard, Angela Cunnings, Barber, Jeanie Gillespie, Clodagh Tumilty and Brendan Tumilty, Pamela Wilson, Paul Reidy, and finally Terry Donnelly. So I'm just about to start sharing screen. If you can give me a thumbs up, William, that my screen is being shared. Thank you.
You want me to go upstairs?
Okay, so can everybody turn their mics off, please?
I can't see anything.
I will mute everyone.
Okay, and then I'll unmute myself, I suppose.
I've lost my screen. Is that normal?
And you're unmuted, Ross.
You should be able to see my screen. Okay, so here we go with my 10. Okay, everybody seeing that? If you just give me a thumbs up. Okay, so this is my number one here. It's a sports picture taken in Mary Peters Track, which is, within half a kilometre of my house here. So every day during the lockdown, I'm taking Freddie down there for a walk down to the track and round it several times before coming back. So this is a local high jumper, Sarah McElmoyle. And at Mary Peters Track, you do get that fabulous out of focus foliage behind the jumper. I do have Bob Given to thank for this one. He was giving us, some members of the club, tuition. So he told me how to turn my camera on and where the wee shutter button was and told me when to press it. So I managed to get this in focus. I jest, of course. It is an extremely tricky exercise. I literally had tears coming down my face trying to track the high jumper running in and coming in, just get the perfect shot, sort of half over the bar. So I'm quite proud of that one. Second one, I'm not really a nature photographer. I do dabble in nature. So previously this would just have been a bird. And if you wanted to be crude about it, a bird on a stick, a phrase that I hate to hear judges say, but however. This, of course, if I hadn't been doing nature, as I say, this would just be a bird on a stick. I now know, of course, that it's a parrot. It's a redpoll. Pamela smiling there. So this is a redpoll taken in Hugh Wilkinson's back garden. The out of focus background is yellow gorse bushes that are just, far enough away just to give you that beautiful creamy yellow background. And of course, the little redpoll just sat nicely on the top of the stick there and had a little bit of bird feed in his mouth. The incredible ballerina from Hungary, Fanny Müller. This was taken actually just before the lockdown. I was lucky to host Fanny in the studio for 3 or 4 days. She is a fantastic athletic ballerina and gymnast. And I'm calling this, William, I apologise for stealing one of your titles, but I'm going to call this, Ain't That a Kick in the Head. She literally, doing this once, she literally did kick herself in the back of the head, bringing up that back foot like that. But hopefully you can spot the nice rim lighting around the edges. So rather than lighting the subject from the front, I've lit her from, back angles and possibly slightly from above, but it's all rim lighting. But I really like that one. I only processed it last week. It's one of those shots that would have sat on the hard drive as a raw file had I not decided to process it. A fine pair. This one got into the London Salon. It also got into the Edinburgh International Exhibition, which is part of the Fringe. And I was delighted because one of the members of Edinburgh Photographic Society sent me this. So the Society used it for one of their flyers to advertise the exhibition that year, and also the review that my image got in the local newspaper. A fine pair, a bodiless pair of tights, pair of legs in fishnet tights by Ross McKelvey from Northern Ireland is an illusionistic photograph of which even Man Ray would have been envious. So I was quite pleased with that feedback, needless to say. So on the print that I take around with my print talks, I have that little flyer and that critique printed on the back. This is a new tourist attraction in Belfast. It's called the Great Light. It's down behind the Titanic building in the Belfast docks. Obviously, if you're going to do something like this, you should go during the blue hour. And if people wonder why we talk about the blue hour, of course, there you can see why we talk about the blue hour. And we've got that nice play on blue and orange, which is part of the complementary colours on the colour wheel. It's, I think it's the internal workings of a lighthouse, essentially, which has been turned into a local statue down there at the docks. Maybe it's a symbol of hope. One of my creative ones, Cheeky Hanger. It's actually just 2 shots. So if you take that line across the shoulder, from there up is one straight shot, and from there down is a second straight shot, and then you blend it. Using the warp tool, you can line up the edges and the creases in the jacket, etc. So Cheeky Hanger did really well for me in creative sections. Another creative one, Free Spirit. So obviously this one on the right third is the Free Spirit. Apart from that, it's just 2 pictures. So one picture of the girl wearing the Venetian mask, and then it's just copied and moved, copied and moved, copied and moved, copied and moved. And as you move each figure, Photoshop actually knows what you're doing. And a little sort of pink line comes on the screen and says, yeah, you're nicely centered, or you're the same distance from the previous one. So it's actually a very simple thing to do. Fine art nude. This is taken in Dundalk in a mansion house or country mansion in Dundalk, Bellurgan Park. Holly is obviously a fantastic, well-known fine art nude model, but look at the way she has connected herself to the stairs. Hand connecting here at the bottom of the stair rail, foot connecting here, and it had a sort of a musical instrument appearance to me, so I called it Irish harp. Hopefully for obvious reasons. A very contemporary one. This one was originally called Post-Brexit, the apocalyptic landscape. But if I put it out now in competition, I maybe will call it COVID-19 or something like that, or I will use that as a base for a new rendition of the image. And call it COVID-19. So maybe watch this space, look out for that one. Final one from me is Anna Rose. Anna Rose, absolutely fantastic gymnast, model from London. Freddie's just come in to join me. Where are you, Freddie? Oh, he's run out again. So, close the door here, please. No. So this is Anna Rose, fantastic gymnast. From London, and she does all her nudity implied, so it's all about shapes and all about her. I mean, look at the calf muscle there, the muscle on the thigh, etc. So obviously I've had to dodge and burn all the highlights on her skin there to make her stand out. So that one got 15 out of 15 in the print championships a couple of years ago, and is a personal favourite. So that is my 10. Thank you for watching. Next up is Les Forrester. So William, if you could unmute Les, and Les, I will show you pictures on the screen, and you then just simply take control of the mic. So whenever if you want to speak, Les, we know that your mic is working.
Can everybody hear me? Just nod.
So you seeing that, Les?
Yeah, I'm seeing that.
Yeah.
Everybody hearing me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mine may be a bit slightly different to a lot of yours. You won't see any people. Well, maybe in a couple, but you'll have to look hard. This is a shot of, we'll call it Radioactive 9. It was shot on a December afternoon just off the North Sea of Redcar, when I just saw the stanchions of the Turk wind turbines all being lit up, which sort of made me to think with the blue sky it would make a good black and white. And it's been in a few comps. Last year it won a Fujifilm Fujiholics Landscape Photographer of the Year, so that didn't do too badly. Next, Ross. This one, this is in Portugal. This is in Lisbon. This is the Vasco da Gama Bridge. Shot in the middle of the day, really. It's 26 degrees, blue skies, and it didn't really bother me. Because this bridge is 7.5 miles long. This is the sort of image that I was looking for. So I just sort of grabbed the top and the bottom just to pull it into the centre so you can see the full width of the bridge. The stanchion, the lights, the wires, that's just lit up by the sun, is that. The next one. Somewhere close to home. This is called the Jewel. I live on the edge of the Yorkshire Dales, and now and again we get some snow. This particular morning, it was, I think, about the 24th of February, if I remember rightly, and it's only about a 10-minute walk from my house. So it's a matter of getting up there early in the morning before the footprints and kids were doing sledging and things and trying to get pictures of these trees. If you walk around them for about 180 degrees, you can get different sort of compositions from them, being very much together, very much apart. I just like how they sort of like dancing together. And just a little bits and pieces of the grass poking through the snow at the front. I think I've got a series of 3 or 4 of these at present, so on Facebook, maybe some more coming up.
Presumably, if you've printed that one, Les, you printed on a fine art textured paper.
I haven't printed that one yet. I decided which one to print yet, Ross, but nearly all of these this will definitely be printed on Council Infinity. Possibly one with a little bit of texture on it, probably the vellum. I'll print that on. Next. This one again, it's back to Lisbon, and this is a biochemical research lab. The buildings have got 2 cylindrical buildings at either side. That it is white-ish, and the floor is pretty white. Again, 26 degrees, blue skies. I just like to the left is a fire exit where the yellow is, and then just the 3 trees. And yes, you look hard enough, it is 3 trees. And then just muting down really the sky to an acceptable colour blue that I thought would give the palette of the sort of the yellows and the greens something to pop at. This was my last foray into some of the competitions. Going to Edinburgh last year, it was in London Salon, which both did well for me because out of that I ended up selling about 3 or 4 prints from the 2. So it was always a print. Next we go to one of my ones that people recognise me for. This is the library. Obviously, it's a library. It's the library in Stuttgart. I went to Stuttgart a few years ago. Well, actually, just to Munich to shoot the underground. Then took a train for 2.5 hours up to Stuttgart. Short walk to the library. If you look up to the top left, there's a bit of a cafe there. That's where I went first of all. Tried to stop being a little bit giddy because I was quite excited, and then just surveyed where I was going to shoot from. And it was a matter of, in the end, I shot from top floor, left, right, centre, and all the way down. This one has got people, and some of my architecture shots don't have people, but besides books in the library, you're going to see people. So You had to wait a little while to get somebody coming down the stairs. As it was a couple. Thinking back now, would have been nice if that couple had come down from the top stairs. That would have evened it up quite nicely. Most of the books have been desaturated, except for a couple on the left that's green and some that's blue, just to sort of have the whiteness. Because it isn't really white. The building is a light greyish colour, but I sort of saw this as being really bright white, really high key. Somewhere I'd like to go back to, because this was shot in, I think, 2015-16. It wasn't as popular then as it is now. But I've got a few more ideas that I'd like to sort of shoot around it. Next, Ross.
How wide a lens was that taken with, Les?
That's when I had the Canon. That's, I think might have been, that's the 24mm.
All right.
24mm tilt and shift.
Yeah.
But there was a little bit of work in getting it straight. This one is in Hamburg, and you'll notice this one, and maybe another one or two, that I tend to shoot most of my architectural photography abroad, mostly in Europe. You'll see one shot a bit further afield. There's a good reason for that. It's because there's no hassle abroad. I can use my tripod more or less wherever I want. And this is actually a government building in Hamburg. It's a newish building, but it's a government building. This particular staircase and floor, which are called Curlin's World, is hidden away at the back. And just by asking at reception to get entrance, they just go out of the way, in Germany especially, to help you get the shot. There's a man walking down corridor with a lady, through some security passes, through a couple of security doors. She said, "I've got to stay with you while you shoot it." And, fine. Half an hour later, got the shots, and that was it. And that's the reason why I shoot a lot of architecture abroad. Next is again, so staying in Hamburg. This is Sprinkenhof. It's a listed building in Hamburg. It is a lot of office buildings, and this is the central courtyard, which is superb to shoot upwards. And again, it's one of those where I had to be patient. On the left-hand side of the top, I had to wait around about an hour and 20 minutes because the sun was hitting the top left-hand windows, and to wait until the sun had dropped. If you just look closely enough, sticking out from the sides, and the lights are just coming on. So I thought I'd leave those there. I know a question that's going to get asked by a lot of you that's looking at this: were the clouds there, or did I put them in? Honestly, I can say they were there. I did debate if to take them out or leave them in. I think I had a version with them out, and it's not quite the same. This actually was shot handheld. There's lots of reasons why I had to shoot it handheld. And this is shot with a Fuji X-T2 and a 9mm lens, try and get as much of this in. So there's a little bit of straightening, a little bit of playing around once I got home, but it had to be a black and white. Next. A bit further away is this. This is in Hong Kong. This is an arts centre, opera centre. It's been very recently opened. It's only been open about 12 months. And I was there with my wife last September. I took the opportunity while I was to go visit this place. It sort of depicts a mountain. So where you see the round bits at the bottom, I don't know what I'm pointing to with my finger because you can't see what I'm pointing at. But it depicts a mountain and the hut on top of the mountain. And then you've got the sun shining down with the clouds around it, what the bits of swell for the clouds around it. That's what it depicts. Again, you can see, again, people in it, which I wanted in this because I wanted to sort of show the scale of the place because it is quite huge. But it makes it look a little bit more huge when it's shot with a 9mm lens on the Fuji. The next is the next two, this one and the last one from Venice. This is a classic Venice location what people shoot, but this was shot on the 21st of December last year. We were there for Christmas, and whilst we were there, We had the Acqua Alta, which is the high tides in Venice. This Saturday particular morning, it rose to about 140 centimetres. Anybody that knows Venice, St Mark's Square is the lowest point in Venice. So anything above 80 centimetres is when it starts flooding. So it was fairly high. We had the high tides for 5 mornings on the trots. But this had to be a black and white, just because of the water in the square to try and get the reflections of that. The last one, next one, Ross, which is my last one. The colour one of Venice. This is Venice again in flood, and not a typical Venice classic view, although the bridge that you see to your left is the bridge that lots and lots of people stand on and take photographs of towards the right-hand side of the bridge of size. The way that morning, it was just the flooding and the colour of the water, and to try to lift that colour up and make it as bright as possible. This is about a 15-second exposure, as I remember it, so it wasn't that long. But that is something different from Venice. And trying to find difference in Venice is quite a difficult thing. But that, everybody, is my 10 images. So thank you for having a look and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thanks, Ross.
Thank you, Liz Forrester. Okay, next up is Bjarne Hyldgaard. So Bjarne, can you check your mic there?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Good.
So folks, you're in for a real treat here. Okay, number one.
It's an old, from 2009, I went to...
Sorry, Bjarne, can I just interrupt you?
Yeah.
Very rude of me, I didn't introduce Les, really. Les is from Yorkshire. Bjarne here is from Aalborg in Denmark. He has been over to Ireland to judge nationals and internationals. He had me over in Aalborg doing a talk and a workshop. And he is a top-rated EFIAP Platinum, or are you higher, Bjarne? What are you, EFIAP?
D2.
D2.
Yeah.
So one more to go, and he's in the top FIAP distinction. So Bjarne, we're really delighted that you can join us from Aalborg in Denmark this evening. So sorry, I will hand back over to you.
Yeah, thank you. I went to a photographic workshop in Santa Fe, New Mexico in 2009. The teacher was Joe McNally. This was his friend Donnelly, who has passed now. And we took the picture in and burned down a prison outside New Mexico. Yeah, outside. Yeah, next one.
You've got fabulous light on the face on that one. I love all the, the subtle shadow detail here, etc. But the light on the face there is just tremendous.
Yeah, he was a very skilled model. He could, when the flash went off, he couldn't tell you if the exposure was correct. That was a nice guy.
That's what you get for being a friend of Joe McNally, I suppose. Now, why is my... Oh, there we go.
Yeah, this is a composite. I went to the Faroe Islands in 2007, I think, and took some pictures for an energy company up there. And then I took the picture of these two guys in Aalborg. We have a great Viking graveyard up here. And put the two things together and desaturated it. There's a highway on the other side of the fjord and some farmhouses. I got rid of that. And some fishing tools in the water, sticks, you can see the sticks. So I applied for Master FIAP 2 or 3 years ago. This is one of the pictures, but I failed it. So I have to try again.
Yes, and I think you'll do very well the next time, Bjarne.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, next one, please. This is from my workshop in Denmark, held by Bjarne Hyldgaard and myself, and Tim Pyle was there, and Niall Whelan was there, and Håkon Grønning was there. And the five of us, we had a half a day to teach the other guys how we worked and how we took our pictures and the thoughts about taking pictures and so on. And this was inspired by Tim Pyle's unique use of landscaping, use forms and geometry to make his picture. This is Miska. She lives in Norway. I think she's from England. Yeah. Next, please. This is from an old castle in Czechoslovakia, just outside Prague. And the girl is a Czechish model. We went there for 3 days, 3 years ago. And we had a lot of fun down there. Yeah. Yep, next.
I've awarded this one in several international salons.
Yeah, it has done well in international salons. It's made on the same castle as the other one. There's a stairway, 2 stairways, one on each side, and I'm standing in the middle shooting at her, and my friend is holding a speed light with a softbox on it to light her up. It's a good one. I like the details in the castle, in the concrete and so on. So
yeah, it's just absolutely fantastic. Well done.
It's a Polish model. She's called Natalia Igla, if you know her from somewhere.
What is the title of this image?
Stairways to Heaven.
Oh yes, yeah. Oh wow, another favorite.
Yeah, it's she's called Jasmine Sundström. She's a Swedish model, and sometimes you call her something else. I don't remember the name. Yeah, this is a workshop held on Benny Rudder's farm. He had a farm once with a big studio, and the floor is movable, so we could put this floor to every which background he has built. So we just moved around until we got the look we liked. So yeah,
and it's lovely. You've just got lovely detail there in the ribs, and nice subdued highlights on the arms, etc. It's well finished.
Yeah, she's a nice model. Yeah, thank you. Next, same place, different model. Faith Star from France. I think she lives in Germany now. Very skilled model. My first Afro-American model. I just asked her to pose on the wall and took 1,000 pictures of her, I think. So
all natural light?
No flash. And the beam of light from the right is made in Photoshop.
Right.
Yeah. Next, please. I gave myself 3 Lens Baby lenses and tried them out. And this is made with a Composer 2 Lens Baby. It's like a holster, you put the lens in it, and it's not sharp, but it cannot be sharp. And the stripes and the lines in the foreground is snow on the asphalt. And I get some concrete in it too, and to make some structure. And I blueprinted it, I toned it blue. So I didn't use the Lens Babes as much as I thought I would be when I bought it, but maybe next year. Yeah, next. This is from my second try on the M5 title, the distinction. It's called Landsknecht. It's mercenaries from Germany in the 1530s. 2 rival kings in Denmark had to fight for the crown, and one of them took some German soldiers up, and he won the fight. And these guys are dressed up every weekend like these mercenaries, and they have at 30 years period of time, and all the costumes are made to look like these 30 years. This guy called Lars, and he's the chief of the group. There's some women there too. Your youngest one is, I think she's 69, and the oldest one is about 90, and they sew all the clothes by themselves. Yeah. This is a new technique I'm beginning to use. It's made in the Blue Hour, and it's her head is with a light up with a flash gun to make it sharp, and the other things are made with a torchlight for exposure about 5 or 10 minutes. And I have to clone myself out because you could see the silhouette of me in some of the corners. I'm just moving around and she's standing still. And then I light it up with a torchlight. I like that. It's very slow, and you have to use a Olympus camera. I don't think any other camera can do this. They have a very long exposure where only the new light is added to the old picture, so they can stand open or have the shutter open almost forever. Yeah. It's made in Norway, by the way. I think that's it.
Okay, well done, Bjarne.
Thank you.
William, have we got Angela Cunnings logged in?
No, Ross, we don't.
Yeah, she's been messaging me on Facebook about problems, which is unfortunate. Let me just check my phone here a second and see if Angela's had any more success. No, unfortunately not. So what I will do is I will show Angela's 10 pictures. Unfortunately, I can't give you much of the... Angela is not a competitive photographer, so a lot of you will not have heard of her. She is based in North Antrim in Northern Ireland, and she does... I mean, you'll see the sense of individual style coming through here from Angela's pictures. She does, you know, like the sharp subject and the focus or the background out of focus, and sort of a desaturated and like a browny hue over the images. But I'll just go through them here. So fabulous kid's portrait. I mean, look at the eyes there of the young child. Lovely out of focus background. It's even out of focus on the, you know, such a shallow depth of field. The eyes seem sharp, but even the boy, by the time you get to his ears, it's out of focus. And there's that brown tint that in some ways is Angela's trademark. Again, taken in close to her home, I assume, in near Ballymena, County Antrim. And she does these for families and whatnot, the pet portraits, and there you've got the autumnal scene. But I love that dog with the nose up in the air. Fabulous. I mean, this would, you know, Angela doesn't enter competitions or salons as far as I'm aware. But you know, you could imagine this being on the top roster come the end of the day amongst the high-scoring images. Whenever the judges are starting to award medals, you know, it's just fabulous. I mean, that is a real, you know, award-winning picture. So, in close with a wide angle, I assume, on the beach somewhere in Northern Ireland. And you look at the energy of that horse, which has probably been lying down in the sand. You can see the flattened sand there where the horse has been lying on its side, and is now getting up with a lot of energy. Again, fabulous shallow depth of field here with this kid's portrait. Look at the light in the eyes, light on the face, the lit side of the face here on the Rembrandt triangle here. Just fabulous, Angela. It's just a pity you can't be here to tell us more about it, but hopefully you'll get to see this on YouTube later. Another teenage portrait, nicely sort of themed with the, you know, the outfit, etc., and again, nice shallow depth of field. So the clue is in the picture here. You can just see under the water a pallet that obviously the model is standing on, or part of an old pier maybe. Personally, I might be tempted to clone that out and create more of the illusion of the model walking on water. So I assume it's more or less a straight shot, but good control of the sky exposure, etc. So a famous spot in Northern Ireland, the Dark Hedges, up in Armoy, near towards Ballycastle. You know, it's just a real tourist hive. If you want to get a shot there without people, you have to turn up very early in the morning. Wedding picture, so very nice. You know, Angela is like a lot of, well, not a lot of female photographers, but some female photographers that I know in Northern Ireland who maybe are not as confident as they should be. I mean, if you can shoot a wedding picture like that, you should be charging big money for your wedding photography. Super. Okay, that looks as if it's Angela's 10. So next up is Phil Barber. Phil is a member of Wigan 10, and he was over in Belfast doing a talk recently in Catchlight, just last season before the lockdown. So Phil, can you turn on your mic?
Yeah, it's on now. Greetings from Lee in Lancashire.
Good rugby league town, Lee.
Yeah. Most of my pictures tonight are composites, so it might be a bit different to the other pictures you're seeing. This first picture is called Feeling Sleepy, and it's quite special to me because it was the first picture that I ever won a gold medal with quite a number of years ago. It's a picture of Sam from Whitby. The background is the little tiny house from Conway. I think it's the smallest house in Britain or whatever. And they had it spinning in the background, so it looks like the steampunk goth girl is hypnotising her. I say it's special to me because it's the first one I won a gold medal with. Next. Again, another composite. I said all the pictures we've seen so far are pretty straight, but a lot of mine are composite. I do nature as well as sport, but most of the composites what I put in. This is Bill Sykes and Bullseye. Photographed the Ragged Victorians. This was, I think it was in Nottingham. They travel all around the country. A lot of people photograph. Very, very good to photograph. The dog is from Crufts. I go to Crufts every year and go to discover dogs because I love dogs. And I love this particular breed of dog. So I had this picture, this guy, this Ragged Victorian, and I thought he looked a bit like Bill Sykes. So I wanted to make a composite, the dog jumping up at him. I'm actually giving the dog a treat there and it's jumping up at me. And I've got a swag bag. It's like Bill Sykes. He's just robbed somebody's house. Probably over-processed, but that's my style. It's I tend to give everything like a golden look for my Victorian stuff with like painting with overlay, which Terry Donnelly showed me how to do, my mentor.
The check's in the post to Terry, is it?
Yeah, he's been my mentor throughout my career. Next. This one's called Her of the Dog, and it's by an artist. I love the artist. It's Cassius Marcellus Coolidge. I mean, you see these pictures in tap rooms, like where the pool rooms are and what have you. And first time I saw one, he's done quite a number of these. I just love them. So I wanted to try and reproduce it. Again, all the pictures are from Discover Dogs at Crufts. and I've basically warped their arms into the positions of playing pool. Bit of artistic license, like the dog holding the drink. They don't have fingers, but on the painting they did, so I wanted to do something similar to the painting.
How long would it take you to create that type of image, Phil?
Possibly a long time. I'm not saying a long time, but I enjoy doing it, so I'm not really bothered. And if I'm entering competitions, I want to try and win. So the more you spend on it, you've got to try and find that fine detail as well as a bit of a wow to it. But like I say, I'm not bothered how long it takes, so they enjoy doing them. Next, bit of nature for you there. This is called Brown Hair in the Morning Light, and it's probably one of my favourite nature pictures I've taken. It's been in competitions, but it's never done very well. But again, it's still my favourite because they're so hard to photograph, brown hairs, especially getting close up to them because they're so skittish. I know with this particular one, you can see them in the long grass. You can see the tips of their ears in the long grass. So I did a bit of sniper crawl and got up to the point and like hid down in the grass, knowing he was there because I saw his black ears. And then it's just a case of lifting up and snap, and then he's gone. A couple of weeks after that, I got even close to one. I saw the black tips of the ear, and I was there for ages. I was that close, I could have picked its pocket. And I was there for about 10 minutes, daring till I lift up and have a look. And it wasn't moving. So I thought, right, I'm going to have to get this because it's going to run. So I lifted up, got a camera ready. It was a black bin bag. Next one. Iron Man. Every year we have Bolton Iron Man. And I like going photograph them every year. Get press pass and get onto the stage and photograph them. There's a bit of artistic license there as well. Actually just photograph the top of the image, usually with a 500 prime lens or with an extended on, and then imagine what it looks like underneath the water and created what I think it looks like underwater.
Am I right? Did you tell us those are your hands?
Yes, that front hand is my hand. You can see the sausage fingers. Next one, another sport. This is one of my other loves, is doing sports photography, and we get to get press passes when you apply for them, and I've luckily enough to get the press pass for the squash. This is like a Diamond League squash event by AJ Bell, where you get all the top players in the world coming over to win the prize money. I've desaturated the background and darkened the background, but when you're actually taking these photographs in the press area, you're behind a little glass wall, what they're hitting to. Usually they're with like Squash TV and a couple of other photographers, and it's the most uncomfortable experience you'll ever experience photographing them all day, but you do get some good pictures. And the lighting's usually not very good with these, so you're shooting at ISO, but using a Nikon camera I can get away with it.
We believe you.
Next one. And again, another composite. I like doing the cosplay kind of stuff. It's not everybody's cup of tea, but I like doing it most of the time. Now, my pictures are for me. I don't enter many competitions these days. As you can see in the background, it's got Gotham, and that is actually Salford Quays in the background, which is just down the road from me. I've changed it to Gotham, put Gotham all over it. The guy who's Batman who's firing the machine gun, he was actually, when I took the picture, he was doing a selfie of himself with his camera. So I thought, take that off and put a gun in his hand. And the motorbike I've made myself. It was a little toy motorbike from Tesco, and I've added all the elements on myself. I've been to the Steam Museum in Manchester. As you can see, there's like steel tubing and stuff. They're all from steam machines, and I've made the bike. The actual tyres and my van tyres off my Vito. Next. These next couple of pictures are some of my new stuff and never been in competitions. I wanted to try different kind of like surreal contemporary type art. Nick Walton, who's in our club, inspired me, and he told me to look at an artist, Jamie Baldridge, looking at his kind of work, and it's influencing me at the moment, and I'm enjoying doing it at the moment, doing this kind of stuff at the moment. It's not got a title or anything yet, but I'm enjoying doing it. Got background created, like textures off a farm wall and stuff like that. If I see any nice textures, I just take my mobile phone with me and take photographs everywhere. Pictures from Northern Ireland, like the poster in the background was in Port Rush pub. The ship at the bottom, that was in the harbour at Belfast. So just like adding bits and bobs in. It's artistic license, do whatever you want. Next one. Another brand new one. This is called Myths and Monsters. I wanted to do a mermaid picture, but with a bit of a difference. It's like a collector who's into myths and monsters, and he's bottled this mermaid up, what's still alive. And just try and add a little story to the image. Like the little thing next to it is supposed to be an alien, and I've got a little sign on that says extraterrestrial. But stuff like that is just photographed at Comic-Cons. They sell stuff like that. Like I said, just photograph anything and you can put them into your composites. And that's it. Thank you. Oh, no, it's not. Last one. I thought that was the last one.
We couldn't go without one of your dogs and the Newfies.
Yes, this is probably my favourite picture ever. It's a picture of my dog Henry. He's 12 and a half now and he's struggling a bit. It's won me quite a few awards. Again, it's artistic license. I've created it by taking a photograph of his head, take a photograph of his paws. The waterline is a vase in my back garden, dropping fruit in to get the actual waterline. And then you can just puppet warp the waterline to make it look like water. Again, influence from a film poster. You've got to be influenced by something, because everything's not original, so you can just copy bits and bobs. But like I said, that's done very well for me in the past, and it's one of my favourites.
You make it sound so easy, Phil.
Well, yeah,
I take a photograph of a dog and a couple of paws and some water in the back garden, and there you go.
I fooled a few people for a while until I explained it.
Yeah.
So,
okay, Phil Barber, well done.
Thanks.
So that is the first 5. So we're going to take a 5-minute break. So if anybody wants to go to the loo or recharge their glass, we will start in 5 minutes with Jeanie Gillespie. So it's now 2020. So at 2025, hopefully we will start again with Jeanie.
Such, they might just be somebody that I see in Costa, somebody on the street, somebody that's a friend of mine. But I'm not shy in terms of asking somebody, a non-model, to come a model for me. But there are certain traits that I'd like to enhance in them. And depersonalization tends to be one of them. So no matter who it is, if they're a pro model or not, I do tend to either cover their eyes or get them to close their eyes themselves, and then elongate the neck as well. It's just a habit. I think I was told it once, you know, nice long neck or something like that. And it just stuck with me. And then I push it and I turn them into practically giraffes. So I do tend to keep my newer stuff. I was like putting too much stuff into it, I think, and letting it getting a little bit too complicated. So some of my newer stuff, it's simpler. I've used a lot of motion blur, and then keeping nice sharpness around the eyes and the face. And I'm going back to using quite a lot of blues now, just because I love the whole color philosophy, and I think it's quite inspiring itself by just how things, depending on what color they are, can actually change the mood as well.
Do you offer these for sale, Jeanie?
I do. It's funny because I do offer them for sale, but it's not something that I strive to do. It's nearly like a happy bonus or happy coincidence. Sometimes things will, you know, if I wanted them to sell, they'd probably never sell. But otherwise, yeah, if someone wants to give me a few quid.
Yeah, I asked that because I think it was Ellen McDermott. Ellen McDermott said that, you know, the likes of this picture, if it's anonymous, the more anonymous it is, then somebody can walk in and say, oh, that looks like my granddaughter, or that could be my wife, or that could be, and whereas if it looks like some specific person, it's unlikely to sell. So, you know, that's when you made that comment about making it more sort of anonymous, that's what made me think, yeah, it was designed for...
Damn you for getting my secret. It does actually work. But half the reason for it is because I like it. It's sometimes, especially whenever I was doing some of the darker stuff, I didn't want to put a certain story or persona onto a model. But yeah, if you're talking about sales, that's great. That's a great idea. Next. I do title my images, but then I change the titles. This one was initially called, I think it was First Love or something like that. But simply because at the bottom of the image, you'll see that there's a little tiny little wedding ring. And then there's little, yes, thank you, Ross. And then there's little tiny bubbles coming from it. So I'm quite a romantic. So I love the, you can't see it so much, but I love crafting as well. And I will make my own props, dresses, whatever. And in this one, I didn't make this lace, but I had been making lace. So if you go into the actual image, or if you see the printed version, the lace is absolutely, I just love it. So for me, it's nothing to do with the foliage. It's nothing to do with the beautiful red hair. It's to do with this element. You can't see what I'm pointing at. It's this element of lace and how you can see the details and all in that. So I like dimensionality, and we've got light coming from the top, which is really the hopefulness. So everything has a story or a feeling that goes with it. So, but there's a green and there's a blue to it as well. So they've got their own meanings, which we won't go into now. Next, please. Oh, this is one of the newer ones again. That was an older one. This is a newer one. So I was doing a little bit of travel, and with that you have your, I'm not one for hanging around to do a slow shutter speed to get no people. So I'll fake it. I'll take something in the morning or in the evening before I go out boozing. And then, and I'm not good with straight lines. So what I'll do is, instead of trying to get my perspective right, I'll just change it. And at the minute I'm doing bubbly things. But this same background, I've used in, I think, one of the other images that I have in here. So I do reuse something that I have. Here she's got, I've been doing quite a lot of fashion stuff because it's just fun. And I've loads of materials and I clamp things together. So I don't like committing to certain like I won't have time to commit to making an outfit so much anymore. So I will use something and then I will add on to it. But in many cases, I'll have something from a thrift shop, and then I'll add, like in this one, the what I call it, I think I called it future fashion or futuristic fashion. It's, you know, those plastic bag things from, they're not bags, but they're like, you know, whenever you're painting and you put the clear plastic, there's some of those. And then if you move that, then it can look really cool. So whenever you merge the two of them, they're really good. And I use wigs a lot. This is the other, this is the mono version of exactly the same street. So I didn't have too many that worked so well for the kind of shots that I was doing. So I went, okay, well, I'll just reuse what I have. And in this one, I have, I've changed it. So I've got rid of all the colors, all the details, and just kept black. So there's nothing, only black. So going into my channels, I'm playing around with it. And then to spherize, I do everything in square because it's simple. I don't have to go worrying about, oh, what size was that whenever I print it? And god damn, I'm after cutting half of it off. So I found that if I just stuck to the same sizes, then it takes the thinking out of it. So I have my square image and then I've spherized the center of it just to give it that little bit of a glow. And this is actually a newish one. And when I have, she's wearing a black outfit, but I've selected that black, and then through my blending modes, I've added color to it. And then once I've added some color to it, I've then through just taking it away and then bringing up through, I think it was subtract or divide, then it can give it like not a neon look, but like a negative look. And then once I do that, then I can go into my color select and I can change the color to whatever it is I fancy. And this one I just fancied orange because it's the color of creativity. Next, please. I reshot this one because I had done it. I'm kind of new to this game. I think it was 2017 whenever I started. So I think I did this one. And you know the way you compile these, okay, I've got to do a shoot. And then you get your shoots. And then you're like, okay, but I really have no idea how to process them. So they sit there for a while. So I had this one and I did it. And again, this was before my spherize and I was just in my eternal circle phase. And I lost the original, so I reshot it. And then I found the original. But do you know what? I should probably have stuck with the reshot one because it was actually better. And I have my flat landscapes, which I do tend to, whenever I'm going out, I don't have the patience for nature as much as I appreciate it and would love to. But I think with having the kids and stuff, it's hard to just have that quiet time to settle down, relax, take a picture. Instead, I'm quick, get a shot, get out of there. So sometimes it's only a bit of the shot that will be here. We have the flat landscape. And I don't always have the benefit of having the nice sunrise, sunsets. It does happen sometimes, and whenever I do it, I'm like, oh my God, I have to do that more often. That's just the most magical feeling. And here, just to bring it around, I have ivy. Everything is symbolic. So everything that I have in an image is very symbolic of something. So whether it's the ivy, the feathers, the gold fleck, or whatever it is, like even in terms of her lips, they're ever so slightly orange. Again, there's tends to be that orangey tint. But on the originals of these, whenever I print them off, I just put a little bit of, just because it's fun, a little bit of gold leaf. So depending on this one, it's got gold leaf at the feathers, just on the printed versions, just to make them a bit of fun. Next, please.
Lovely, I really like that one.
Thank you.
Enter that one somewhere that I'm judging. And stick a $5 to the back, of course, as well.
Just a $5.
I am cheap.
Yeah, clearly.
Here's a cheap date.
I've heard. Cheap date. This one I had to put in because it was one of the first. It's before I discovered blend modes, and I cut out. I brought the kids to Disney, Disneyland in Paris, whatever it is called these days. And this is the pirate ship from Pirates of the Caribbean or whatever that section is. But I was still, I cut it out by hand, quick select, and then looping, and then going through each individual, I don't even know what they're called, but those rope things by the masts and everything. It took me days. It took me forever. Rigging. Thank you. It took forever. But I actually kept it in its Photoshop, the cutouts of every single section that I did. And it was an absolute nightmare, but something very satisfying from it. However, I did learn that if you can master your blending modes, which is something that I have now, or have learned a little bit now, that you can make it so much easier just if you can get those complementary backgrounds and just make them blend and disappear into each other. So here, this was my very first model shoot. I haven't really done that many of them, but this is my first model shoot and nude model shoot. Of course, I had to do the two at the same time because it's nice to challenge yourself. So this was, she was from the Czech Republic, and Nicole Art, I think she goes under the name of. And do you know what? Again, it's something that I've shot, but if I don't vision the image beforehand, they sit there. And I think possibly I was quite nervous in taking the shot, and hopefully I didn't appear so, but I tend to, before I'm doing shots now, I will always vision. I'll know exactly what it is that I'm wanting to get out of it. I can see exactly what it is going to happen before, and then through time I will put all the elements together. So I call it stock harvesting, when I've got that pre-visualization and then I get all the elements. It can take me forever to, some images I still have so many that I have to put all the little elements to them. And you know what, I think that's half the fun, that you can just put them into little sections of your head, and then whenever you go to look for them, you just go ding, and then you're like, okay, these are all starting to come together now. But it can get a little bit frantic, so I do have a system for getting that out. But this was really fun to do in the processing of it. And we went to an aquarium then to get the, actually was that, I think that was in Bray, the you said the fish shop. And they're great actually. If you put the camera against the screen, it gets rid of all reflections, and then you can just shoot them bad boys. Next piece. This one is again, it doesn't seem it from the title, but it's a very romantic image in my mind. And it was originally called Plenty More Fish in the Sea. But she has a bullet hole in her chest. And when you see the large version and you look through it, you can actually see, but I've used jellyfish, and I'll tell you why. Because they're prettier. So whenever you look through her chest, you can actually see the little jellyfish at the other side and the light that's coming through. So on the printed version, I actually have, on some of the printed versions, I actually have a light at the back of it. And then it actually, so it helps me just get this through a little bit more. But the reason for the jellyfish is because, and I think I first noticed how much I love them. I was in visiting my sister in the UK, and there was a fancy restaurant, and then outside the fancy restaurant there was, you know, the way they'd have those fish tanks and jellyfish, you know, to make people go, ooh. We were in the cheapo one over the other side, which I think was way down the chain from McDonald's or anything like it. And I remember just going, and this is only what, maybe 2018, and I remember just going, she was like, would you come on? Because I'm just there by the screen just going, I gotta get this. And I've got my phone up against the screen. People are in the restaurant looking out, going, what is she doing? But those bad boys move. They're actually a lot faster than you think. But with the light that they have in those tanks, I just love them. They're superb. So for this one, it's a hopeful sign. So again, we've got the neck going up, and she's going to the surface. So we've got the lights coming down. I do tend to like lights that are shooting downwards or at an angle like this. But then I cheat and I kind of will flip my light, because I'm like, no, I like it this, and get some Rembrandt light. But I change it because I think I'm a creature of habit, and I like to just go against the flow with lighting sometimes. Next, please. This was, again, an image that I had taken in Galway and Salt Hill. And I didn't use it. And I went, but I wanted to. I was doing this whole Irish kind of every county. So, I mean, traveling around, you get a lot of, you know, the way you just pick up pictures of whatever it is that you're going around. So I had this one, and it didn't look great because I had actually been trying to, I can't remember whose work it was because I'm terrible with names, but somebody had taken a picture in mono, and I think it might have been Salt Hill, and in mono, and they had a red towel just over the edge of the barrier, or whatever you call it. And I remember thinking, whoa, that looks really cool. And I tried to do it, and it looked terrible. So what I did was I tried that, and it just didn't look right the way that I was processing it. So I had it there, it sat in stock for 2 years or something, and then I went, oh, I really want to use that. So again, I slightly changed the perspective of the pier, or whatever it's called, and then I just cut a bit out, and I just placed it over. The idea with the model is that she's not quite in a fetal position, but this was all part of my rebirth section. So here she's more like re-emerging rather than fetal and protective. And we have flowers, lilies coming out. And on one of them, what I did was I actually had, well, they were fake flowers, but I had, because if you have clay and a bit of wire, like floristry wire, that I have, like I turn it into 3D, so you've actually got the flowers that are coming out of the original image. And all the papers that I use tend to be quite textured as well. Next, please. I live around the corner from, do you know the Galtee Cottage? Nanny Cottage, I think it's called, but it's known for being in the Galtee sausages ad. So it's really handy that the tide comes right the way in there. So although I took the picture down there, I then changed it because the water, it doesn't get deep enough to go stormy. But over the other side does. So whenever I have that, and I had my idea, so originally where the cliff was, that's where the Nanny Cottage was. But I'll use sometimes the same as having that idea in my head. It was nearly used like a pre-sketch or an etching of what was going to happen. So although I didn't use the Nanny Cottage, I ended up taking that out. I still used exactly the coastal line. It's that water underneath, but then I put another stormier water on top of it. So layering my water so that I could have 4 or 5 different seas. And although I love the outdoors, even though I'm not good with the cold and all that kind of stuff. I still love being out in the elements, but I will take all those layers and I'll merge them into one and ruin them. And again, we have that softness. So we're using wigs again. Some of my, one of my best friends is actually a hairdresser, but she's a perfectionist. So if she's shooting with me, then she'd be like, oh, the hair has to be perfect. Hair has to be perfect. And I'm like, no. So it works really well for me to use her for something that I want perfect. And then for something that like this, that it doesn't have to be, it's a little bit disarray. So I can use wigs. And then we've got that softness with the hand as well, which again is just bringing that elegance and fragility to the image, and we've got a double exposure on her torso as well. Next, please. Okay, this one again, I think I have a tendency to shoot, don't like it, reshoot. So this one, the original that I had shot was with a fabulous model, Erica, that shoots with me. But if it's somebody that I know, I don't let them, I don't know why, but I don't like encouraging nudes if it's somebody that I know. So she did have a white dress on, but it just didn't do the trick. So I didn't use her, and I reshot it then with another model. And again, the idea with this one is a little bit, I think I called it Venus or something like that, but really it's inspired by Mork and Mindy. No. So I have it should be a clamshell, but I have a mussel shell. I've desaturated it, and then I want to make it look slightly planetary. So what I've done is I've actually used one section of the mussel shell and brought it over onto each element. So the original is there, but then I've just brought it over and desaturated it and made sure that our lighting is darker from the bottom. And then we can see a slight reflection in the water. And then I'm a lover of mist. If there's mist, now it doesn't matter how cold it is, I will be out. Love shooting a mist. And then you can see that it actually looks slightly, or it should look like it's slightly elevated off the water. I think that's it, guys. Is that it? Is there more?
Well done. Yeah. Well done, Jeanie.
Thank you.
Okay, folks. So it was quite rude of me to ask somebody to do half a post. What happened was I was going to invite Clodagh or Brendan, and I thought no. So we've got a husband and wife team who are taking up one slot of 10. It is Clodagh Tumilty and Brendan Tumilty from Dundalk, both members of Dundalk Photographic Society, of course, a club that many of you will know won the Fiat World Cup probably, I don't know, maybe 8-10 years ago.
2010.
10 years ago, is it, Clodagh?
Yeah, before our time, I have to add.
Are you going first, Clodagh?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, so here are your 5. So, no, I think I've got a problem there. I'll just try that again. There we go. You seeing that full screen?
Yeah.
Okay, you're on, Clodagh.
I feel a little bit out of my depth here with all these very illustrious photographers.
Yeah.
God, I don't enter salons at all. The only competitions I enter are just the club competitions and then the IPF ones. So anything I do, I tend to just do it because I enjoy doing it. Around this time last year, my daughter was over in Bath. She was working over in Bath, and myself and Brendan went over, and we were blown away. I have to say, not by Bath, but by the villages and cathedrals and stuff in the surrounding areas. This image is a composite. You're all familiar with Mishka, and that was actually taken in studio. The dress was bought for my 50th birthday 18 months ago, and it looked a whole lot better on Mishka than it would ever look on me. And the background is the cloisters in Wells Cathedral, an absolutely stunning building. So we spent about a week just going around that area and just absolutely loved the time that we had there. The Mishka, the lighting on Mishka was all natural lighting. It was actually taken on myself and Mishka hired Catchlight Studio one day last year, and it was taken up in the famous little white room up at the floor above the studios. And yeah, so that's that one. I don't do composites very often. It probably isn't brilliant, but it was my best effort on the day. So that's that one.
Seems well done to me, I have to say.
Next one.
Just waiting for my computer to kick in here. There we go.
That actually looks a wee bit blurry, but it's actually pin sharp on it. That again was taken in studio. It's actually Fanny Muller. When I take photographs of models, I tend to try and do something a little bit different from what people normally do, or try and see it from a different angle. As a child growing up, my parents were very much into the classics, and I would have grown up going to a lot of ballets and things like that. So I just, on that particular image, I just really wanted to focus on just Fanny's feet and what, you know, just the elegance. I think that's what I was trying to portray in that image, was just the elegance of a ballerina's feet. So that was that one. This little fellow, when we were over in Bath, I'd never heard of them until last year, and the Ragged Victorians were doing a day in Bristol at the SS Great Britain, and we went down to it, and this little chap was in the group that was there the day that we were, I think it was actually this weekend last year, and he was against a very busy kind of background, didn't particularly suit the image that I had in my head. I don't know, anybody who's been at the SS Great Britain will know kind of there's just a lot going on in it, and so I just took just a wall from one of the old cathedrals that I had been in and dropped it in behind him and blended it in. Black and white photography wouldn't be my forte. I very much struggled just to get the tones right in them, and sometimes I would struggle just to get them punchy enough, but I keep trying, and someday I'll get there. What's the next one? This shot is something that I would normally never do. I'm not a landscape photographer. Any of the lads from Ireland that know me, I tend to shoot, the only landscape photography I do tends to be very soft, beachy shots from my home county of Donegal. I'm not into getting up and standing in a puddle of water at 5 o'clock in the morning waiting for the sun to come up, or standing in a puddle of water at 10 o'clock at night waiting for the sun to go down. So it's not something I do, but I have the utmost admiration for anybody that does do it. A couple of years ago, again, my daughter was working in a summer camp over in Canada, and we did a road trip at the end of it, and this was down in Niagara Falls, and the picture set on my computer for, I think it's 3 years ago, and I never really gave it much thought, and I was rooting through stuff, and when I put it up on the big screen, and I just thought, gosh, I really love the colours in that. And on the day, anybody who's been to Niagara will know there's always rainbows floating about, but there had been one a little bit earlier, and then it went, so the rainbow was actually dropped into that. But I just loved the colours in the water, and that's my attempt at doing some kind of landscape photography.
That's one of those photographs, Clodagh, when you first look at it, you sort of don't get what it is. You have to look a bit closer until you see that water line and the water cascading down. You know, it's an unusual. Yeah,
there's 3 viewing spots in Niagara. There's one obviously up at the top, and then there's one sort of halfway down it, and then where you just get soaked, and then there's obviously one down low, right at the bottom of the falls, and this one was taken from the one down low. So the fact that I was even able to get it without the lens of the camera getting completely spotty from water was a miracle in itself. So I was quite chuffed with it. As I said, it's not probably a brilliant landscape shot, but I like it. And you know, I said, my photographs I take because I like them myself. I don't take them for anybody else.
Good philosophy. So, are you going to move over in the chair, or is
no? There's one more.
Chair?
Yeah, very aptly called "Waiting for the Hubby." You missed one, Ross.
Oh, have we got another one there? Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, my apologies. Yeah.
And it was, I have to say, it was very difficult just to pick 5 images. I just rooted around for ages and couldn't decide, which is probably why I ended up sending you what do you call it? PDF files instead of the JPEGs. These ones, again, they were the Ragged Victorians, both taken down in the SS Great Britain, and again, it was just a busy sort of background that was in them, and I didn't like it. The background of this one actually comes from a little village called Castlecoombe, and all those little villages are all used in, you know, period dramas and things. You see them quite regularly in movies and that, and I just thought they suited the background. As I said, composite imagery is not something I do an awful lot of, but I'll always strive to improve what I'm trying to do. And when I saw Phil's stuff, I just thought, oh my goodness, that's his picture of the Ragged Victorians, and I have one coming up that just, yeah. So that's it. Yeah, they were taken on two separate images. She was in a group. There was 3 or 4 of them in the group, and I just took her out of it. And then he was standing with the boat in the background, and put him into that one. So, and again, I just thought the tones in them suited the tones in the buildings. And the only thing I really did, the top part, there was a lot of sort of bitty sky and stuff in it, so I just kind of filled it in and just got rid of, you know, drain pipes and a bit of electrical wiring and things like that. But other than that, it's fairly as it was. So that's my 5.
He looks like the character who was Sykes in Phil's.
Yes, I think when I saw it, I thought, yes, that looks very much like the same guy. But yeah, it's as I said, it's a very different image to Phil's one.
Okay, well done, Clodagh. My apologies for missing your last one there. So Brendan is up next.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. Feel very humbled. Just turn down your sound.
Where do I do that? Sorry.
I'm getting an echo from the computer. Feel very humbled to be asked to be in this company, I must say, and maybe that's why I'm here, to show the diversity from the good to the ordinary to the poor. This first shot, I'm probably known for my composites, maybe more so than anything else in the club. The lads would always give me a bit of stick about which bit of that picture is real and which bit's not real. This is one I had in my A panel. And my A panel a couple of years ago, AIPF, was about people in the environment, and I tried to capture different people in different environments. This guy was a street busker in Barcelona, and the shop in the background was a coffee shop also in Barcelona. But there was an obvious natural fit between the punk and the terminology on the wall behind him. So I liked it, and I put him quite central because I actually used it as one of my central images on the A panel. That's why he's in the middle of the shot. But everything else about the shot is pretty genuine. The only thing that was a little bit unusual was when this guy was singing at the time. While he was singing, one of his eyes was actually closed. So I had to rebuild one eye from the other to make sure he had 2 eyes open. And I was doing this probably late in the evening and had a few glasses of wine, but as I was checking the eye on its own unique layer, he was winking at me. And I just said, "Whoa, that's enough wine. We'll put the wine away, and maybe just come back to this tomorrow." So it was a funny feeling. But one of the ones I like. Next one, thanks. This is a shot I took of Mishka, probably 4 or 5 or 6 years ago up in Ross's one day. And it's one of those when you have on the computer, you never really know what you're going to do with it. She was wearing a red cloak. The shot was technically good, lighting was good, as it would be in Ross's. And I just never really knew what I wanted to do with it. But one day I had occasion to be in Powerscourt in south of Dublin in the autumn, and there was lovely colouring in the trees, and obviously the red leaves come through, and I just said I could see her coming out through the trees, and I just put that together based on that. Some funny colouring at the bottom of that just now. I see orangey at the bottom of her hair. Don't know if that's on the original, but there you go. Thank you.
Oh yes, I see we do it here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just broke down and not quite sure. This is probably one of my first ever composites, and it's quite an old image at this stage. It's maybe 6 or 7 years old, and I just wanted to try something different with photography. So there was a cave on beach in Bundoran, Donegal, and I stood into the cave and shot out from the inside. And obviously, to get the exposure right on the cave, everything outside it was completely blown out. But I knew I wanted to put something there and I had no idea what it was. So I added the castle, which is the castle from Central Park in New York. And most people would not even know that there are castles in America. There's one right in the middle of Manhattan, which is quite a bit of a kick out of that sometimes. And of course, the sky and the lightning I added in through Photoshop. I just like it, one of my early composites, so that's why it's there. This one's unusual for me because it actually is a straight shot. We went on a camera club weekend to Donegal I'd say about 3 years ago. And when you go to Donegal, the most natural thing in the world to do is to go to the beaches and the rocks and the waves and the cliffs and the colours around the beaches are fabulous. And because we're there as a group of 8 or 10 or 12, I just said, well, I'm not going to go to the beach. I'm going to head into the mountains. And as it happens, come across these two guys shearing sheep. But for me, and it's not all that clear in the photograph, for me, they were shearing them with a scissors. You'll see he's a hand shears in his left hand, in his right hand. So certainly takes you back in time. And for me, I quite liked it. Would have liked to have seen a little bit more light in the guy's eyes. His eyes are quite closed, the bigger guy. But otherwise, I quite like that one.
This was a personal favourite, I have to say.
Yeah, and thanks, Ross. This one got me a 5 medal, bronze medal, probably a few years ago. And again, a story behind it. The composite, the coffin was in an old workhouse in Ballyshannon, again in Donegal. And it was actually almost dark when we walked into the room. It was nearly feeling around the walls to try and get in. And it's about a 1.5-minute exposure, I think. But I actually tripped over the coffin and nearly fell into the darn thing. So knocked a bit of value out of that. So I had the coffin. I never knew what I was going to do with it. I always felt there was need for an undertaker somewhere. And this guy owned a stall in Belfast Market, in the George Market in Belfast. Posed for me one day. I was up there with the camera. Clodagh pointed about him actually, and asked him could he take a shot. No problem. And his mood and everything just fitted perfectly with this background. So I put it together on that basis, and it's done quite well for me. That's my 5. I'm done.
Rosemary Hughes, who's watching. I think Rosemary has photographed this guy, but I'm fairly sure that he's dead now. Maybe Rosemary can unmute herself and tell me if you think I'm right about that. Are you there, Rosemary?
I'm here. Yes, I'm here, Ross. No, that's not the guy I photographed. The guy I photographed was in Amsterdam, not this guy. Right.
This guy is down at St. George's Market. For some reason, I get a picture of him.
No, I don't think it was me.
Right.
No.
Okay, thank you, Brendan. Next up, folks, we have 3 to go. And part of the idea that I had here was to show lots of variety. And next up is Pamela Wilson, a member of Catchlight Camera Club, just new member last year. Fabulous nature photography, so be prepared to be wowed with some of Pamela's nature photographs. So Pamela, have you got your mic on?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, and we can see you as well.
Hi everybody, I hope everybody's keeping well. So these are this particular images of bee eaters. And that was taken in Dimitrovgrad, in just a little place in Bulgaria. And it's a fantastic guide called Bogdan Bov, who actually has these hides set up. I love this kind of photography because there's no bait involved. This place is in wetlands, and it's like Bogdan's little black garden. So he's got lots of hides and things set up. So the idea is you can kind of be driving around, and if you see a little place, he'll set up a tent if there's something you want to photograph. So this is one that he'd already set up, and it's literally just twigs set up on a riverbank above where the bee eater's nest. So you just sit and wait for these guys to fly up. So this, I think, was my 3rd trip there, and in particular I wanted to get them passing food to each other, so that's what happened. There you go. Yeah. This one is a little image of banana quits, photographed in Costa Rica last year. I love these little birds. I mean, I love to try and capture, you know, what's happening in a scene, not just a picture of a bird. So to try and see the relationship between the birds really, or the animals, would be what interests me to do. So this one in particular was really quite a rotten little picture. These are set up, and it is set up quite a few of the ones you'll see here. There's studio lights set up, and it's actually photographed in a little restaurant. So you've got a little backdrop set up behind, and then this plant is kind of hung in front of it. So there's 4 studio lights set up to light this scene, but it's not in an enclosed space. These birds and the hummingbirds that you'll see coming up as well are literally just flying in and out of the scene. It's amazing. But these ones in particular, they kept trying to shoo these little birds on. I was like, no, let them stay, let them stay. They were just fantastic to watch. So I hope you like it too. I really like the relationship between them, but it was a rotten little picture, green, nasty green background, and not really the kind of lighting that I like. So I did a little bit of manipulation to kind of get this effect, a nice soft tone, which is really what I was seeing at the time. So next one.
You've got a menagerie going on in the background as well, Pamela.
Yeah, I thought I'd have some moral support here. And now he started talking. He's been quiet all night. So, shh.
I love this one now. This one, we put this through to represent Catchlight in the last round of the club competition, and we were worried that the judges would think it was a composite, because it's not a composite, is it?
Well, sort of not. This was actually happening, but there was a lot of mess in front of the aigrette on the left-hand side. So although I tidied up as much as I could, I did have to manipulate another head. So I've actually got bits of the same aigrette, which I've had to sort of bring back into that aigrette. So, and I did remove a lot of foliage from the front, but yeah. So no, it's not technically a full composite, but yeah, there's a little bit of manipulation.
It's a lovely shot, absolutely lovely shot.
Well, it was really exciting to try and get. I mean, these baby elephants play with the aigrettes, so it's just trying to capture again the relationship between the animals. So this little elephant had been chasing a whole load of aigrettes, so they just stopped at this point, and it was some kind of standoff going on. I don't know, but there you go. Again, taken in Costa Rica, this one. I really like this again. This is not set up at all. The relationship in Costa Rica between the farmers has really improved over this time. And what happens is the farmers will call tour groups. So they'll have there's lots of tour groups that go there, and the farmer will actually call up the guide and say, look, we've got this little hummingbird is landing here. Literally, you just call. So you get a busload of photographers will turn up out of the blue, and you just go down and stand and wait. He says, no, it'll be back in a minute. So this bird's flying in and out, getting his food, and he comes back and lands on the same bit of fern every single time. So this was really, really delightful to get this, because it's completely natural. You're just taking your chances that the bird's going to turn up. It was great.
The colour palette is great there, with the green and the purple and the bird and your green background. It's
the background was stunning, and I did, because it's such a tiny bird, I did have to crop it in, but there had been some rain, so of course you've got this gorgeous bokeh in the background, but it was quite far away from the bird, so there's just these massive splodges of light coming through in the background. It's lovely, but because it's such a tiny bird, that was cropped quite a bit, so yeah. And the next one. This is a little bear from Finland. I know a lot of people don't like mono in nature, but I really like this image in mono. I originally changed it to mono because the background was actually a little grubby, or I thought it was a little grubby, which sometimes happens in these setup areas. So, there's sort of lots of nasty sort of browns and things like that, but I really think it works as a mono image. And the little bear is just kind of looking back. He's got his fish, his prize catch, and he's just kind of looking back at you. It's mine. Again, the hummingbirds in Costa Rica set up. You've got the background. I didn't mind this background so much, so I've left it as it is. This isn't a composite. This is just as was. And just being able to sit and watch these birds coming in and out is amazing. I love it. I could just spend every minute of every hour on holiday watching these birds. They're fabulous, and they're so tiny, just buzzing in and out the whole time. So it's an absolute pleasure to be able to do, you know. But I love the colours in this, and I love the oranges and the greens. I think
what sort of shutter speed do you use for these?
Pardon?
How fast a shutter speed do you use for the hunt?
Well, again, it's you know, there's lights there, so that speed lights are used. So
Right.
you're really only talking about 200th of a second.
It's the flash duration.
Oh, yeah, whatever. So this is one from Greece. This was a couple of years ago. Martin, who I think's in here somewhere as well, was there, and I think he was just to my right at this one, Martin Patton. And Terry was at the other side. I don't know if Terry's there with you tonight, Martin, as well. But this is one of the images I actually gone for. And they feed these, hi Martin. So they do throw fish from the shoreline, you know, for the birds, but it's a busy scene, if you can imagine. You know, this is an area where the Dalmatian pelicans nest. So there are just hundreds of pelicans just appearing. So I think there were actually about 10 or 15 pelicans in this scene. So I did have to do quite a lot of photoshopping to tidy it up, because I just wanted the 3. So I was absolutely delighted, because that was the first day of my trip and I got my photo. So what was that?
They're fabulous birds.
They're just amazing to watch, you know.
You've got a lot going on here.
So this one's actually taken in Scottish photography hides. Alan McFadden, I'm sure quite a few of you know him. So although it is a composite, I just happened to miss what was happening at the time, you know. So I had to recreate it. I mean, this was happening at different times. So the woodpecker and the squirrel, they were there. That's real, that's genuine. But I think I put in the little chaffinches at the side. I had no choice. But again, it's just to try and reflect what I was seeing at the time, because there's all this stuff going on. Just this little reflection pool and all these little animals coming in and out. So maybe it's a little Snow White-ish, I don't know. But I really like that kind of thing, you know.
Under the new PAGB rules, of course, that can be entered in nature now, because the rule is if it looks like nature, it is nature. So even though you have done composites, but that's where you need to be careful that you don't enter it into, say, a salon, an international salon in nature. But you can enter that into the PAGB as nature now.
Oh, right, okay. Oh.
I love this one, as you know, personal favourite.
I do. I mean, this is absolutely delighted to get this photograph again in Costa Rica, and we're just touring around, going to different places. So this one we'd actually gone to, they call it a macaw farm, but it's not a farm. It's just a man who has rescued macaws. So they actually now live there wild. There's 50 to, I don't know, 50, 80 macaws there. So we certainly were not expecting to see a sloth whenever we went there. And sloths come down from the trees and poo. So they don't poo from the tree, they actually come down. So we literally just, everybody bombed over. No one was expecting to see it. The guy that owns the place certainly doesn't have them there regularly. So we followed this little sloth as he was going from doing his business back up into the tree. And I did spend quite a lot of time following him around, trying to get a shot like this. I love the lines. I love that, you know, he was climbing. So I've got this lovely V going on. There was, however, a really nasty background above the sloth. It was just really bright, horrible sky. So again, I've had to do quite a bit of manipulating there, you know, just to sort of bring in the green. But this is one of my favorite images from last year. So I toned down an awful lot. You know, the foliage on the right-hand side was really quite brown. So I did do a lot of toning because I wanted the focus to be the sloth itself. And I softened quite a lot of the foliage on the left in and around there, again, just so there was little bits of the leaves sort of standing out. So I think I did that. The sloth is the main focus, and I just love the way he's looking. So everyone else had actually cleared off at this point, so it was just me and the sloth.
The composition, you know, the composition of that is just absolutely fantastic.
It was
this triangle here, and the long extended arm of the sloth. The eye contact, etc. So yeah, I expect to see that.
Some absolutely ridiculous positions trying to get these photographs. I don't know what kind of shape I was in getting that sloth in the end, you know. So more hummingbirds again from Costa Rica. Again, these ones were set up. There's, I think, 4 speedlights used for this. This is a composite. The birds were there at the time. Well, it says composite, it's not. The bird on the left was just in the wrong position, so I moved him. So and again, it was just to try and get these angles that I know work well and that I know are pleasing. So I think it's, I love it. I love the colors. I love the pink flower and the greens and everything. So yeah.
Is that your 10?
Is it? Oh, thank goodness.
Let's just check. Yes, it is. So well done, Pamela Wilson, a rising star. And we have 2 people left to present here. We first of all have Paul Reidy from Blarney down in the bottom left of Ireland, and we have Terry Donnelly from Liverpool. Both hopefully fairly well-known names in the salon competition circuit. So first up is Paul. Paul, are you there? Have you connected?
Yeah, just go back on there. That's it.
So well done to Blarney, Paul, for winning the Southern Association of Camera Clubs competition at the weekend.
It was a good win, yeah. It was our 3 in a row. So
3 in a row,
nice,
well done.
3 in a row,
So,
yeah.
Paul, hopefully you're seeing that full screen and you're ready to go.
Perfect. So this is one of my composites I've been practicing with recently. The background is a bridge from it. And the man in the front then is a local character that does a lot of reenactment. And what I've been practicing was using a little bit of movement in the backgrounds and layering textures on it, and then adding my subject, and then just changing the finish to make it look more painterly, more warm, and it prints really lovely on art cycle paper. So it's a style I've been trying lately, and sometimes I get it right. And this one is probably one of my all-time favorite images. And shoots. It's one of those shoots where we planned the shoot from start to finish, and then the finished image as well was something that I was hoping to get the colors and movement. This girl is a Polish model. She's a hairdresser, and she hasn't modeled since, actually, and it's a pity because she's a fantastic model. And she created that headpiece. And the background then is just one of those acer trees that you find in local parks. It prints so gorgeous. You see images where they look good projected, but this is absolutely fabulous printed. I think I've edited about 4 images from that shoot so far, and it's a couple of years old now. The other image from it, Autumn Queen, which is kind of similar, but the model's head is looking down, won the IPF Potty in 2017. So yeah, it's one of my all-time favorite images.
Yeah, lovely color palette to it.
So this chap is a neighbour of mine in Blarney. I work as a chef in Centra, and he's coming out of the shop, and I spotted him one day, and I went over to him and said, look, I'd love to do some portraits of you. He thought I was a bit mad in the head, being asked to do to pose as a model in Centra. But I kept asking and eventually he did say yes. So I called up to his house one afternoon, and it's all taken in just natural light coming into his kitchen. He's kind of famous in that he's a music historian, pre-1916 music historian, and he was on the set of that Ken Loach film, Windle Shakes the Barley. And when he was on it advising it, Ken Loach saw him and insisted he be part of the film. So he was in some of the scenes as well. But that day I met him and photographed him. I spent about half an hour photographing him and about an hour and a half talking about ships and boats and music and stuff like that. And there's a great connection between the two of us. Every time we see each other now, we have a good chat about bits and pieces. But it to me, it's kind of special in that it wasn't just about taking pictures, it was about meeting him and learning about him. And like, he built his own house, and he was telling me about his late wife, and he's living in this big huge house now that he built. And like I said, we spent only about 30 minutes taking pictures, and the rest was just chatting and having a cup of tea.
Excellent. I always say to people in Catchlight, the clue is in the name, black and white. A lot of people make their black and whites too many shades of grey. This for me, it's a true black and white picture, a high contrast black and white. So I've always liked that one.
So I think Joe's on here. That was a shoot with Joe Doyle up in Dublin. with Rochelle Summers, and we had a great laugh that day doing the shoot. This was in one of the secret houses that's not so secret anymore, but she's a gorgeous model to work with, and so easy to photograph. She is fabulous at posing and doing shapes, and there's no fuss about her, no divas. She's just a pleasure to work with. And we had a good laugh at her as well, which made the day go quite well. And this was taken out in the backyard of that fabulous house. And again, you can see the gorgeous shapes she's able to make. And this beautiful urn was out there as well. It was all set up lovely. And the old door behind it. I just changed the tones a little bit on it. And it prints so lovely as well. But a fabulous person to work with. As is Joe Doyle, by the way, just again. So the room I'm sitting in now, I photographed this little fella. He's my sister-in-law's son, and I said to him one day, I said, look, we do something different. We take a photograph, and he said, okay. And I have this little steampunk hat and the glasses, and I took some pictures with the backdrop, and it just weren't working. So I said to him, I want to dirty up your face a little bit. And he says, grand. He was 5 at the time. And I went down, got a little bit of coal and smudged him up a bit. And I said to him, look, just look as serious as you can. So he did. And look at his face. He's so stern and concentrating, a fantastic model. And I call it, I don't like Mondays, because he used to always crib about going to school and stuff like that. And he'd rather be home and with his mother. But I loved the sternness in his face and the way he was just so natural and how quick he was able to go into different poses. And now his little sister, who's 4, anytime she calls down to the house, she's also, when's it my turn to do the photo shoot? I want to do a photo shoot as well. So they don't all have to be professional models to get pictures done.
Is he for hire? Would he come up to Belfast?
I don't know. See, up there you've got too many models. Ross, I think we'll try to keep 1 or 2 of them down here. Again, that's a shoot with Joe and with Rochelle in this beautiful house, and you can see how stunning she is and how well she's able to pose. And when I saw it, I said it might try this in black and white. I've loads of versions of it, but you can see all the textures and lines in the wall and on the floors and the window. They're all just naturally there. It's a beautiful, beautiful place to work with. And I'd love to have a place near me in Blarney to be able to go and shoot there all the time like that, because the lighting in there is lovely, and it's grand and private, and you get as many shots. But like I said, there's loads of people out there shooting in there now, so it's a not so secret house anymore. So this is the girl that was in Autumn Crown with the headpiece. I've been wanting to shoot something like this. I have a great admiration for makeup artists and creative makeup artists. And the day we were shooting, it started to rain. So you can see the specks of rain on her hair and stuff like that. And just to the right of her on a seat, there was a couple of lads drinking a few cans and shouting and roaring at us and stuff. So she was kind of a bit nervous. So the way I shot that was I just sat a reflector on her lap and took a dozen or so shots, and the makeup was starting to run, and we were getting worried it would spoil and stuff. But she just sat there and posed away. And this original picture is has a background with all the wall and crap in it, so I had to blur that out. But I tried to keep the similar tones to her hair and her eyes in the background. And then that blurring on the front is actually feathers I picked up in a Halloween shop. It's feathers on a set of wings. But again, it's beautiful eye contact, and she is so gorgeous to work with. She's very creative and stuff like that as well. And again, this is one of those images I say it prints so well. It's has a little bit of texture to it as well, but on the background, and but her eyes are so gorgeous. It's fabulous.
You entered this one in salons?
I've entered it a couple of times. I stopped doing them actually. I'm only actually after getting back into them the last couple of weeks. I missed the buzz of competition, so I started putting images in again. A lot of the stuff I went back through my old files, and shoots like this that I haven't edited any of the pictures. I've been redoing them and entering them in a few salons, so hopefully they'll do well.
Well, I would expect that one to do particularly well.
It's a lovely image. I really like that one.
Is this an optical illusion? It looks like a little bird's head and beak with a wee eye there. Is that just an optical illusion?
It's an illusion, yeah, but it is feathers. It's a set of wings I pick up in a Halloween shop. That, you know, when Halloween is over, they're clearing all their stuff out, and you go in, you go ramble about, and you never know what you'd come across and pick up and that you could use. So it's always handy to have props around the place.
Well, for me, Paul, if I was judging, that would just be a straight 5. As soon as it goes up, you would just go 5 without thinking. You know, it's just fabulous.
So would you let me know when you're going to?
I will, indeed.
Yeah, please. So unlike Les's pictures, which were absolutely amazing, Les, and congrats on your architecture work, they were fabulous. I started doing this stuff a while back of cityscapes. I don't know whether it'd be good enough for a panel, my A panel or not. But a variety of different cityscapes that I've been using this style with. And this was in New York, and the amazing thing about when we were going to city trips, it always seemed to rain. And New York, we arrived and it was absolutely scorching there, and then for the next 3 or 4 days it just rained. So this is on one of those boat trips around the harbour, and I was just shooting the buildings as if they're amazing buildings to photograph. And then this is my version of what I saw. Again, a little bit of texture, a little bit of blurred movement. So I don't know whether it'd be good enough for a panel of images or not, but I've had a good mix of these shots now from different cities, and you know, you never know, they might work as a panel. And this is the famous old wall. He's nearly 86 now, this guy. He is a local character from Blarney that I saw, and I asked him could I photograph him, and his claim to fame is he builds these little Wonderly wagon carriages for charity out of matchsticks and lollipops, and he sells them or he sells them and gives them out to charities and stuff. And he's made a small fortune for the local cancer hospital here in Cork and Marymount. So the day I photographed him, he was in his daughter's house, and basically he was just taken up against the wall in natural light. And I said to him, look, Wall, I don't want you to smile or anything. I want you to look dead serious. And he had one of these little woolly hats on. I told him to take it off, and you can see the hair's all kind of messed up. And he couldn't keep a serious face. He kept smiling and stuff, and I kept messing him. I said, Wall, look, stop, don't smile. But the funniest thing with him is that we had a competition here a few years back between the different Cork camera clubs called the Rebel Cup. And I invited him along. I said, look, your picture's going to be in the Blarney panel. And he came along, and what people were doing was they stood him in where my picture should have been, and they were taking photographs of him. And everybody knows him as Old Wall now. Anywhere he goes, hey, how's things, Old Wall, and stuff like that. I got a little bit of grief over it because, you know, people were saying it was, I was using a large format camera, but it isn't. It's just a number. The background is a slate and an old picture frame, and then just using a shallow depth of field to highlight his face, and you can see that sparkle and twinkle in his eyes. He still drives today as well, and how he's able to drive, I don't know, because he's as blind as a bat. But anytime he sees me, he'll call me and say, look, if you're ever interested in doing a shoot again, or do you want me to model for you? You know, the fees are cheap these days. And so it's a nice record of a great character.
Yep, not half. I've awarded this one as well.
This is again, I work with a lot of models that are not models. Like Jean was saying earlier on, you bump into people and you go, wow, you know, you take a great picture, a great photograph. And, you know, all they're going to do is say no. So it's no harm in asking somebody. And this girl, absolutely beautiful face and amazing eyes. So I said to her, I said, look, would you be interested in doing a photo shoot? Bring your friend along, bring your mum along. It doesn't matter. Bring somebody along just to make them feel comfortable. So she had asked about me and done her homework and stuff like that. And she came along herself, and
still turned up.
She did, even though I have a nice reputation, to be fair. Any rumours you've heard are all fake. But the background is Lake Garda and the mountains in Lake Garda. And again, when we were there, it was just overcast and dull and crappy weather. So I composited that into the background, and it's done well for me. It won the Celtic International Best Print there a few years back, and I photographed her again once or twice after that. But she's a lovely person to work with. And like I said, she's not a model. She's just one of these people I came across, and it was so easy to photograph her.
Yeah, lovely. Okay, that's your 10, Paul.
Great stuff, guys. Thank you so much.
Well done. Super job. So, folks, I have a confession to make. I did tell everybody that I did a raffle to get the order of the photographers tonight. That is partly true. Only 9 of us were in the raffle because I decided to keep Terry Donnelly until last. So Terry, you were not in the raffle, and I'm sure you've all heard the phrase "keep the best till last." And maybe not only, I can't wait for you all to see the last image of Terry's, but Terry, are you connected and ready to go?
I am, Ross. Thank you very much.
How's things in Southport? Or what you're in, well, what do you call your village near Southport? Formby?
Formby, yeah.
How's things in Formby?
Yeah, pretty good. Thanks, Ross. Really good at the moment up here. We've had some nice weather, so we're all good. But I'd just like to thank you for putting me on last after to follow all these fantastic photographers and pictures, Ross. There's absolutely no pressure on me at all now, especially putting me behind Paul. Anyway, but I've got 10 pictures here, and I really didn't know what to show because I've got a lot of pictures. And I played about with it a little bit, and I thought maybe you want pictures which have got a competition type of background. So I've gone for quite a lot of competition images. And then I've decided to show you sort of the ones when I first started competition photography, going back 2012, and then some later pictures as well. But it's hard getting 10. I can't remember who it was before who mentioned getting down to 10, but it is difficult. But this first one is called Magma and Showers. And I actually photographed this in 2011. And we were off to Manhattan on holiday. And it was the tornado went through, the Hurricane Irene. And we were traveling a few days after the hurricane, and it just left. It was like a monsoon. There was rain everywhere. We were getting changed 2 or 3 times a day. And we'd actually been shopping. This was up on Fifth Avenue. And as we come out of the shops, we were finished. And there was a lot of the steam venting from the underground system through the red and white pipes. And this guy just come wafting out. He just appeared from nowhere out of the steam. And I thought, I'm going to have to get this shot. So I asked my wife to go into Starbucks, and she wasn't too impressed. She just wanted to get back and get dry and get changed. And I said, I'll be 10 minutes. I won't be long. So it was about an hour later. I was still trying to get this shot. And wherever I went to, the steam drifted to the other side of the road. And I was going from one to the other, and I was chasing it around. And in the end, I was just about to give up. And I turned around, and this guy come walking towards me with his umbrella tipped down, which was the shot you see there. But I'd made a mistake. We'd been in the Sony Centre, which is underground, which is virtually pitch black down there. And I'd upped the ISO on the camera. So it shot this at high ISO. So then I had to put noise smoothing, noise reduction software on the image, and it smoothed it out. It gave it a painterly look, which I quite liked. But then it was a little bit too far. And for a competition image, I didn't want to put it in and people start saying, oh, it's too soft. So I actually put photographed the window and placed the picture of the window on top of the image as if I was looking from the inside out through a glass window. So that gave me a little bit of leeway to get away with that image. But this image, it's a special one for me. I hadn't done any competition photography before, and this went in to represent my club in an inter-club competition in Warrington, and Christine Whittle was judging, and she awarded it a 20. So I was absolutely delighted, and Chris had a word with me. She said, you should start entering BPA competitions, which is what I went on to do. And then the first BPE competition I entered, it was judged by Gwen and Phil Charnock, and I can't remember the third judge, forgive me. And then I'd done a little research, and I saw that they didn't live far away from where I was. They're up in the northwest. So I sent them an email and just said, thanks very much for they'd awarded the image. And Gwen and Phil invited me up to their place to do a portfolio review for me, which was really, really kind of them. And I've stayed friends with Gwen and Phil ever since. So this was really a pivotal image for starting me doing competition photography.
You and I started doing it more or less at the same time, Terry, whenever we were members of DAPA.
DAPA, do you remember that, Ross?
Yeah.
It was. So, yeah, unfortunately, you've known me for about 8-9 years now. So this one, I thought to show you that I've got a range of different types of pictures what I shoot. And this is one of my creative pictures. And I've shot this in 2013, or I curated it in 2013. And some images which I have are quite close to me. And this is one of them. And it actually stems from a dream. So I dreamt about this bald lady. And she had a blood tear as well. And I woke up the next morning and I thought, well, that was a bit different. So I had done a little bit of research online to see what a blood tear means, but I couldn't really get one definitive answer, really. So anyway, I created this image. I got the opportunity to photograph this model, but I changed about. I messed about with her head. I elongated the neck. I made her eyes bigger than what they were. And I just made subtle changes just to make her look a little bit odd, but not too far, if that makes sense. So I like the idea of having the head disintegrating and spinning off. And also the men on the sides, they're off actually Crosby Beach, they're the Gormley statues. And I've actually made them so they're almost on a conveyor belt as they're drifting through into the background. So that was it really, but I used this in my MPAGB and also the previous image as well. And this one scored 24 MPAGB.
What's the title for this one, Terry?
I called it Redemption.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, I called it Redemption.
It was a fairly prolific award winner in competition.
It did quite well. It was, it did. I've actually got a note of it here. Oh, sorry, I scored 29 on MPAGB. There was one miserable toad who never took the mark for it. But it won 31 awards, this one, Ross, over a 3-year period, so it did do quite well.
Yeah, very well known.
Yeah.
And I remember this one now because this one was in the 150th Edinburgh exhibition.
Yeah, it was. South Bank Smoocher called this one. So this is a composite image, and I actually took the background. My daughter was in London South Bank Uni doing a master's at the time, and I used to go down quite regular and stay with her. And this was about 5:30 in the morning down on the South Bank. So I shot that background, and then I came home, and I wanted to add something extra to it. And I got the idea actually from a garden centre. I saw a picture on the wall of 2 dancers, and I thought, you know what, 2 dancers look really, really good on that background what I've got. But I didn't have dancers, so that's actually me and my wife in the picture. So I came home and I set up the background in the living room, got my lighting out, and my wife was watching TV, and I said, do you want to go and get a nice dress on, some nice shoes and stuff? And she said, are we going out? I went, no, I'm going to take a picture on the side. So she went, oh, I can't be bothered, you know, putting makeup on. I said, well, I'm going to hide your face under an umbrella. So she didn't take that too kindly, but she's a good sport, and she went up and got dressed, and then we put this picture and put it together. But the reason I'm showing you this really was composite photography. Some people don't like it, some of the purists, but I think it's a really, really great learning aid. You know, you learn a lot about light, colour, shadow, perspective, depth of field. And I use in straight photography now all the skills I've learned from composite photography. And it's something I encourage everybody to do, really, to play about with composite work. You can learn a lot from it. And again, this was in the MPAGB. This is the one we scored 24. And that was quite successful as well in the competition photography. Now this one, I wanted to show you this one because this is a composite also, but it's a different composite, and the composite photography sort of evolved. When I first started out, I tried to just make images look real. I was photographing all the elements from the same height, I was making sure they all had the same colour cast, the lighting was coming from the same angles, the shadows were right. And then I started changing it as time went on. And this one is called We Can Work It Out, and I made this one in 2015. But what I did, I started to play about with perspective. And if I walk you through the image, the man I've shot separate from the environment. But if you look at him in comparison to the chair, he's too small. He's an adult male, but he's too small for the room. But it's not overly obvious that he's too small. But it's enough to just unsettle the brain to think that something's not quite right in the image. If you look in the mirror reflection, it's not actually a mirror reflection. It's the same view of the room, just transposed through. But it's lighter, it's more airy, but it's not a mirror reflection. And all these little things are built in purposely to just unsettle the viewer. Because I think if you can unsettle the viewer into an image and lock them in, then you've cracked it really. You've got a good image. I put a whiskey bottle on the floor just to add a little bit of a narrative into the shot as well. But there's purposely a number of different meanings this image can have, and I leave that up to the viewer to actually decide what that will be. And this is part of a fellowship panel which was successful with the societies in 2017. So I did 20 of these, and I called it, what did I call them? Can you remember, Ross?
No, can't, no.
It was conceptual relationships is what they were called. So I've got a full set, and I think in the whole project, I've got 60 plus of these images, but obviously there was 20 used for the fellowship application.
This one was an individual award winner. Did this not get you Photographer of the Year or something in the societies?
Yeah, it did really well. They have an international print competition, the 20x16 print competition, and they accept entries from all around the world, but predominantly they'll be from the UK and they'll be from the WPPI people in America. So it won its category, and then it went on to win the whole competition outright. And that was the first time we'd entered the competition, so I was really, really pleased with it. But one of the judges told me that the reason it was so successful was because when the judges were discussing the image, nobody could agree on what the image meant or what it was about. And that's going back to what I just mentioned before. It's about locking people into the image and letting them build their own narrative from what they're seeing. And this is one of my all-time favourite pictures. This is Lewis Hamilton back in 2013 at Yas Medina Race Circuit. I'm very fortunate. I just changed position where I was shooting from. And I'd literally got to this position, and no more than 60 seconds later, Lewis comes sliding off the track and he rolled right up to the fence line where it was. So we actually shot this, and I got a whole series of these pictures with Lewis getting out the car, and the front wishbone had snapped on the suspension, and he wasn't very happy. He was shouting at the steward. The steward was trying to pull him off the track. Then the tractor came to lift the car out of the runoff area. But this particular image was my favourite just because it was so symmetrical and the way it was positioned to the racetrack. Now, I love the image. I'm a big fan of Lewis anyway, so it was a massive, massive thing for me to get this shot. But also, I entered it in the competition run by the Metro newspaper, and it won that competition. And it went forward with 13 other pictures, which were all taken by Formula One drivers. And then it went into an auction to raise money for Great Ormond Street Children's Hospital. So they invited us down to London to the auction. It was hosted by Susie Perry. Damon Hill was there, Bernie Eccleston. Unfortunately, we weren't able to attend because we had work commitments, but it was just a really great thing to be involved with. And then the following Monday, my phone was beeping away from quite early on. And if anybody doesn't know, but the Metro newspaper, it goes out on all the tube stations and the buses all around the country. And they'd actually printed half a page full colour on page 3, this photograph, and done a big write-up on it as well. So everybody that knew me who were travelling on the public transport, they were all picking the paper up and going, I must send Terry a text. And the phone was just red hot all day, and it was just brilliant. It was just great the way the image happened. It was the right place, right time, and then the story moving on as well to raise money for Great Ormond Street. It's just one of my favourites of all time. And just recently, I don't think you guys can see that.
Yeah.
But a friend of mine got in touch with the race team, and Lewis actually signed that off to me personally, signed it to me in my name, and sent it back to me.
I'll give you 50 quid for it.
Yeah, it's just an all-round great story from that image. It is my all-time favourite image. So next, selfie rabbit. So yeah, selfie rabbits. I did a series of these rabbits in 2014, and a little bit of a story behind it. But what happened was there was a lady I was following online, and she was doing these great great portraits rather, not self-portraits, of people sitting at a desk. And I was quite taken aback by them. So it was an idea. I wanted to do something, but I thought I'll do a different twist on that. I think it's always great to take inspiration. I know Phil mentioned it before, but I thought I'll do some self-portraits. So we decided I'd do a self-portrait, but I didn't want to do a self-portrait, obviously, with me because I'm not a model. So we actually bought this plastic head of a rabbit. So I was going about making just different pictures. I think I did about 30 of them in the end. So this one I called Selfie Rabbit. And it was all about a rabbit, but who had a persona, but had a different view of themselves from what the world did. And that's what you can see on the phone there. He's doing a selfie, but he sees himself as that nice, clean, happy rabbit, but he's actually quite a nasty rabbit as things happen. But playing about again, I've cut the head off it and I've enlarged the head, done some dodging and burning, painted the green skin on. And I've just made a story which isn't a story really. It's a narrative about a story, if that makes sense. Yeah, so that was Selfie Rabbit, and he did quite well. I entered him in a few competitions. He won the Avant-Garde Photographer of the Year award with the societies as well. I think they were quite shocked by having something different from what they used.
It's an excellent series, all those rabbit pictures.
So this one is Freedom Tower. And again, this is a very special image to me. It's I actually got married in 2016 in January, and I took this the day after I got married. So I took it on my honeymoon, and we went down to the financial district, and that Freedom Tower, it's some tower to look at, but it's difficult to photograph. But the actual arm, what you can see in the front is the Oculus, which is the entrance into the railway station. So I saw that and I thought, well, maybe I can do some sort of play off between the two buildings. But it took me a long time, you know, to actually get that angle in the view and the right lens as well to compress it up enough to get this. And I probably spent over half an hour to 40 minutes just walking around the street up and down until I found something that worked. So this was this one, and this one I won Fine Art Photographer of the Year with this in 2017. So again, it's a very special image to me, that, and one of the prizes what I won was a big frame print from Loxley, so that's actually hanging up on the hall as well. But it's a special picture for a number of reasons, but it is my honeymoon shot as well. So this next one, my photography has changed a lot since 2011, and I don't really do competition photography anymore, and I don't really do composites, although I am feeling that I should go back and do some more composite work. So a lot of what I do now is documentary photography. So last year I spent 3 days with the Wiltshire Air Ambulance, just doing a bit of documentary photography with them. We were doing environmental portraiture. But I spend probably 12 to 14 hours a day with them over 3 days. But this is one of my favourite shots. This is Marcia Wilcox, and he's the chief line pilot there, and he's just going through his pre-test flight checks. But I shot this. It's really difficult to shoot inside the aircraft because the aircraft look quite big from the outside. Inside the cockpits and stuff, they're really, really tiny. So it was all about getting angles right, and I just loved the connection what I got with Matt. Matt goes into he goes into a game mode, but although it's not a game, and he's a lovely guy. He chats away with you all day long, but once he's in that zone where he's going to fly, nothing else matters except what he's doing, the controls, the mission ahead of him, and it just changes completely. And it was just good to catch that split second with him actually in that zone. Okay, go on to the next one, please. And this is Bobby. It's I'm quite fortunate where I live. We've got a nature reserve which has got red squirrels in, and they do come into the garden sometimes. So I spent quite a bit of time building a climbing frame and a jumping frame for these squirrels. It took me around 12 months to get them jumping in the areas where I want them to be. And this is one of the pictures what I got. This is Bobby. Bobby is my favourite squirrel. I've got a number of regular ones and they've each got a different name. But he stopped coming now. For the last 2 months or so, I've not really seen much of him. But this picture, I entered this into the British Photography Awards, into the land animal section, and he was actually shortlisted. And it was a big thing for me to see that he was listed with tigers from India, polar bears from the Arctic, all these exotic animals from all around the world. And I had one of my red squirrels from the back garden sitting right in the centre of them. Unfortunately, he didn't go any further than the shortlist. I think the shortlist was 10, but he didn't get into the top category for the top 3. But it was still a great thing to be able to do that. And a lot of thing with nature photography as well. I think that if you're putting the time in and the field work in, the field craft to get your pictures, it just make them that little bit more special when you finally get them. It takes a lot longer, mind, but yeah. And then the final one, Ross, I think, is
La Pièce de la Résistance. Terry, this one is a special one because William Strain is hosting, and I just know that he will absolutely love this final shot. Yes!
I'm ready to remove both of you.
Champione!
Yeah, it's the victory parade for when Liverpool won the 6th Champions League trophy.
How many times, Terry?
6.
6.
How many Premier Leagues?
6. And the thing with this one, this was a really special picture for me. I've been shooting Premiership football now, I think it's 4 years, clocking on to the 5th year. And the conditions what you have to work in sometimes, I mean, you've got the weather, you've got the rain, you've got the snow, you're freezing cold, you're cramped up. Sometimes you can't move, you're that tight, and locked into the areas. You're getting cramp in your feet. And although the game is 90 minutes, it's a full day's work. And it's so stressful getting the work filed and getting the sense of the agency straight away. So this is like a culmination of like 4 or 5 years work for me. And I shot the Barcelona game. We were going out to Madrid for the final, but we had major issues with UEFA over accreditation last minute. So we ended up not going. And at the end of the game, the Champions League final, at the end of the game, must have been probably an hour after the game, I got an email from the club saying, we've secured you a place as part of the media team on the front bus. Would you like to accept it? And of course, it took me 5 seconds to type yes and hit the return button and send that back. And we had a fantastic day. I spent 4.5 hours on the lead bus. I took probably 4,000 or 5,000 pictures. But this was just one of my favourite ones. This is just when it all came together, coming towards the end of the parade. Got the foil trophy floating off to the side, all the happy faces. We've got Jürgen Klopp at the front. We've got the captain, fantastic, there next to him. And it just embodied really the whole parade and the whole season. And it was just great to actually be able to capture this at that time and be part of it. And that, again, because I'm a Liverpool fan, it's one of my favourite pictures of all time. And it's a day I'll never forget as well. And photography is really, really great at giving you very, very special days. And photography gave me that day, and I'll forever be thankful for that. And I think that's me, Ross.
William, would you like me to remove that image from your screen, or are you happy to look at it for another few minutes there?
Get it away. Get it away. Before I throw you and Terry out.
Okay, folks, that is the 10 from 10 for this evening. Do we have any questions from any of our viewers, or anybody want to ask anybody any questions? You can probably all
I would just like to compliment them all, Ross. It's just a fantastic array of photographs, and I'd like to thank everyone for obviously taking part and the organisers of it. Just a wonderful evening. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Same for me as well, Ross. It's been a fantastic evening. So thanks very much to you for hosting it and arranging it. But again, thanks to all the folks as well for showing the images. I've enjoyed every single one. I think there's been a great variety, really, really super content and top quality as well. So thank you, everyone. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, we've had people from all over watching in the audience. So
beautiful.
Thank you, Andrea.
Thanks very much, Ross. It was 100 great pictures and a really good selection. It was a privilege to witness it. So thanks very much, Ross. Chris Palmer.
Thank you, Chris. And you're lined up for the 25th, is it?
No, I can't make the 25th. If you remember, I'm already lecturing elsewhere.
Oh yes, yeah. So yeah, I think you're in line if somebody drops out for next week.
All right.
Yeah. William, are you there?
Yes, Ross. What can I do for you?
Did you manage to record that?
Oh yes.
Good, because my record button, once I share my screen and go full screen, I should going to lose some of the controls. So
I will have it up on the YouTube probably this evening.
Okay, excellent.
William, that video probably cut out with about 2 minutes to go just before the last image, did it?
Not for me, but video editing software is
I think I should show it again just in case.
Just in case.
Oh, Ross.
Yeah, Ross, watch it don't slip.
Screen there, guys.
Not sharp.
Horrible. The color is too oversaturated.
You know what they say? Big red bus.
Not
you know, everybody wanted to see that.
Strange how the ref's not there, the one you paid off.
Okay, guys, I hope you have all enjoyed this evening.
Cheers, guys.
There'll be another one.
Thanks, everyone.
Wonderful evening.
Very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ross.
See you soon.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
The lineup before you go.